Welcome to the podcast of the Political Page blog with commentary from an attorney and entrepreneur on the political and social issues of the day, from a rationalist, libertarian, and often irreverent perspective. This is Political Page, and here's what's on my mind today. Hello and welcome to the blog of the 14th of June 2019, and this one is entitled The Sad Little Secret About Huddled Masses. And let's start this with the uncomfortable fact that in May alone, about 4,500 undocumented immigrants or illegal aliens, whatever you want to call them, waltzed their way across the southern United States border and were promptly caught, at which point they will be re-released into American society with the promise that really they will come back at a hearing in a couple of years to get deported. But that's just the 4,500 that we catch. We have no idea how many people walked across the border, weren't checked at all, and are now mingling in the general population. And if that does not bother you, if that doesn't worry you, then you must have skipped epidemiology in college. Now, a favorite snipe of our permanently appalled betters on the left is to quote this. It's a plaque on the Statue of Liberty written by Emma Lazarus, and it says this. I will quote it. It is absolutely lovely. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Oh my goodness, we are scolded that nothing but an open-door immigration policy could ever live up to those beautiful words. And what evil it is to send back those who finally reach our golden door, or El Paso, whichever one they hit first, to their tempest-tossed origins. What does it say about all of us, the children of immigrants, all whose ancestors stepped out of that crowded murk of steerage class and staggered onto Ellis Island? Would any of us be here were it not for that lifted lamp? To which I answer, yes. Actually, all of us would, because we're the descendants of the ones who came in here legally and got to stay. And not only talking about illegals, but there was a whole bunch of people in that time period who came in legally and did not get to stay. And that is because the refuse of the teeming shore, while poignant, are also sometimes contagious. Listen, the myth that the huddled masses from those teeming shores were historically welcomed into the new Mecca of America with open arms is just that. It's a myth. Immigration to the United States has never been an open door, particularly when it comes to people who are carrying pathogens. When our ancestors, assuming that that's when your ancestors came over, but when they arrived at Ellis Island, they went through an absolute gauntlet of politically incorrect medical examinations. Did you know that when they left the ship, they were put on this really steep staircase? They had to carry their own bags. There was a reason for that. There was a doctor watching them to see if anybody showed signs of cardiac or respiratory problems. Are you panting? Step out of line, please. They then walked across this huge hall, again carrying their bags, and another physician was set there to watch them for signs of what they called infirmity, muscular weakness, lameness, even bad posture. Are you limping? Step out of line, please. Ooh, what if your facial features weren't really symmetrical? Does that indicate some kind of, subpar genetics? Are you ugly? Step out of line. How about heart, lung sounds, nails, scalp, skin, eyes, infected, disease? Something wrong with them? Step out of line, please. And how about this one? All along, every single doctor was watching for anybody who did what they call appearing odd, confused, unable to follow directions, not so mentally sharp. Stupid? Step out of line, please. Did that lack kindness? Oh, certainly to the immigrant, but not to the rest of the population, and that was their priority. They were charged with making sure that anybody who stepped off of that ferry from Ellis Island onto the mainland could be self-supporting, could contribute to society instead of becoming a burden on it, because America was not a charity back then. It was an opportunity. It was not a sinecure. It was a chance. And beyond that, from a medical standpoint, the blunt and the uncomfortable necessity was that we had to reject anybody who could spread disease or, worse, start a pandemic. Holding a lamp beside a golden door isn't nearly as sentimentally satisfying if you start to itch. Now today, an immigrant seeking a green card legally is going to go through the same thing, just in a little bit more kind circumstance. He's got to find a physician that's got to certify, has to certify absolutely this person is free of, ready? Gonorrhea, leprosy, syphilis, tuberculosis, cholera, diphtheria, bubonic plague, smallpox, yellow fever, viral hemorrhagic fevers, pandemic flus, and have been vaccinated against 15 other diseases. They are screened for signs of cardiovascular, pulmonary problems, a history of musculoskeletal or neuropsychiatric illness. Any one of these makes the person inadmissible for entry. It is not kind to that person, but it is kind to society. Teeming masses we can still accommodate. Teeming petri dishes of viral hemorrhagic fever, not so much. So let's consider the new teeming messes that are pouring over our southern border, the ones we find and the ones that we don't. Immigration officials who catch them are required to wear gloves, long sleeves, and wash their hands a lot. Honestly, we do not pay these people enough to do what they do. I mean, we have cops in L.A. that are now exhibiting symptoms of typhoid and typhus from dealing with the people that are on their streets. You can't pay anybody enough to do that. But anyway, let's see what the people are carrying that they have found, that they have stopped, that are coming across the southern border. And this is in addition to the customary mule bags of fentanyl that their human traffickers require them to carry across for them. These are the things that it's not quite so easy to take out of their pockets. How about drug-resistant tuberculosis, measles, hepatitis B, dengue hemorrhagic fever, Zika, leprosy, tapeworm, typhoid, typhus, oh, I wonder if that's where the cops got it, infectious syphilis, gonorrhea, HIV and AIDS, chickenpox, mumps, measles, fungal infections, and skin infections that are, again, resistant to antibiotics. Most of this stuff has been totally unknown in developed countries for decades, and we were once functionally free of them. It was basically eradicated in the United States, but guess what? Many are reemerging now. Where are they reemerging? Guess where? Border and sanctuary blue states. This is laid at the feet of a couple different things, truly. Part of it is the fact that we have ninnies that refuse to vaccinate their children, but that's a small percentage. A lot of it comes from these blue state policies toward the drug-addled homeless hordes that they're allowing to urinate, defecate, and shoot up on their public streets. But you cannot get a disease that hasn't been introduced from somewhere it already exists, and that's the people coming over the border from places the diseases are endemic to places where they are not. Now, the ostrich left is fond of blithely dismissing this as a myth. They say that there's never been a definitive study that proves that these diseases are coming from the illegals. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that you have a virus that doesn't exist in one place and it does in another. Somebody from the place where it exists comes to the place where it didn't exist and suddenly it appears there. How did it get there? They travel on their hosts. And I feel sorry for the people who are trying to flee these places. I truly, truly do. I do not want to live in a place where there's typhus and typhoid either, but I don't want them bringing it here. Now, if you're on the left, you're going to follow this thing up with the immediate corollary that any concern in this regard is xenophobic and racist, because the current crop of diseases are being carried by this or that ethnic group. In response, I would tell them this. Nobody cared what skin color Typhoid Mary had in 1906 in New York City when she managed to infect half the city with typhus. As it turned out, she was a white girl from Ireland, and it didn't matter. Now consider this. Just this past week, 116 illegal aliens from Africa were rounded up crossing the southern border. They mostly came from the Congo, and that's a hot spot for Ebola. Now, that started a bunch of rumors, right? Some of the really wacky websites were saying that Ebola was coming out in San Antonio. It's not coming out in San Antonio, people. If San Antonians were staggering into the streets, bleeding from their eyeballs, somebody would put it on YouTube. However, it's still the largest group of African illegals from a danger spot like that we've ever caught. The Congo not only has at least 4 concurrent, uncontrolled outbreaks of Ebola with thousands of people with the disease, but there's such violence and chaos in their collapsed country that it's impossible for anybody to go in and either treat them or contain the epidemic. And the response from the dismissive left to this rather alarming source of new migrants is the reassuring fact that Ebola kills you so quickly the infected ones will die before they reach our border. If you find that comforting instead of existentially alarming, well, consider this as well. Scientists have a name for a new disease, but it's one that hasn't yet appeared on the planet. They call it Disease X. Disease X is the next evolutionary step for a virus like Ebola, which has been constrained only because the horrific death that it causes happens too fast for it to spread. Discounting Ebola? Okay, let's go to Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever. How about Rift Valley fever, Nipah, Zika, Lassa, Middle East respiratory syndrome, monkeypox, leptospirosis? Any of them could mutate very easily. And what they do is they call that Disease X, and they're trying to get ready for it, and it's not easy. If you notice a common thread in those diseases, none of them are originating in the United States or France, for example. They originate in the hellholes of unsanitary starvation that refugees routinely are fleeing from. And if none of those have yet had an impact on the United States, that is only because of medical controls on legal immigrants and the fact that the bad ones kill their victims too fast so far, and pure blind luck. Because you know what? Viruses mutate, and they mutate fast. And they know it's going to happen. That's why they're trying to get ready for disease X, and it's really hard to do. Because when one of these mutates to slow the progression of a quick killer like Ebola or Marburg, or the next animal flu, for example, jumps over to humans, we have a global pandemic and we don't know how to stop it. The World Health Organization is warning that it cannot be stopped with our current state of readiness and medical knowledge, and where it starts and how quickly we respond to contain it may well determine the fate of the human species. And in the face of all of this, we, the most developed country on the planet, the one with the fastest way to transport people within our borders, widely across a massive geographic area, we may be well allowing disease X to waltz in across our border in the guise of a poignant little family or a drug mule or MS-13 gangbanger, take your pick, who simply is seeking a better life in America and must be released to wander freely across our fruited plain, shedding virus in their wake like apocalyptic Johnny Appleseeds. It is politically incorrect to point that out, but you know what? Diseases don't really care much about political correctness. They kill everyone, regardless of their woke status, their political affiliation, or their choice in genital headgear. Progressives will die bleeding out as quickly as the rest of us, and they may be willing to self-immolate on the altar of coexistence claptrap. But they aren't just choosing for themselves. They are choosing for all of us. Thank you for tuning in to the Political Page podcast today. Original blog articles, complete with a lot more information and great links to original source material, can be found anytime on politicalpage.net. That's political, P-A-I-G-E.net.